What's going on, guys? My name is Kyle and welcome back to the game department. Today we're going to talk about the HP Reverb G2 virtual reality headset. Is it worth it? Is it a good headset to upgrade to? And is it the best headset to work with for your racing sim? So if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that the headset that I used to use for pretty much everything was the Oculus Rift S. And only recently have I upgraded to the HP Reverb. Now there's a couple of reasons that I've upgraded to the Reverb, and I want to explain why I changed and if it is even an upgrade. So before I even begin talking about specs and different things within the headsets to make it different, one of the big things and one of the big reasons as to why I wanted to change is for the stream. Is when I stream in VR, I want to be able to read chat, I want to be able to do things that don't rely on having Steam VR open and running. If you don't know what I mean, in the Oculus Rift S, there's a program that I can use that shows Twitch chat. It's called OVR Toolkit. It's a fantastic application, but it relies on having Steam VR open. So if you're using things that don't use Steam VR, it's really difficult to do, and it's pretty annoying. But with the HP Reverb, you pretty much use OpenVR for most things, so Steam VR is always active, meaning I can have different overlays and things talk directly with the headset without really having to worry about which application I'm using and trying to find weird workarounds. One of the best examples of this is trying to stream iRacing. So the Rift S works with iRacing, no issues at all. It's when you start to use different overlays within the VR headset, perfect example being Race Labs. So there's a program called Race Labs where I can inject Twitch chat, a relative for the race, different standings, a bunch of different information. I can actually inject that into a VR headset so people watching the stream don't have to look at it, but all the information that I need is all there. And you can't do that with the Rift S. It makes it very, very difficult to make that actually happen. Whereas looking at something like the Reverb, it always uses Steam VR, so injecting those overlays is just as simple as clicking a button, which has just made the user experience for me a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot easier to work around, especially when you're live and you don't really have the time to be tinkering and troubleshooting. But aside from that, the Oculus Rift works completely fine. There's no issues with compatibility, there's no issues with it connecting, it was always very easy to use, and I never really had any issues. But let's say you don't stream, or you have no interest in anybody seeing what you're seeing in the VR headset. Is it fine just using the Rift S, or do you spend that little bit of extra money and go for something like the HP Reverb? So I've been using the Reverb for about a month now, and I can say going from the Rift S to this, there is a massive difference. Now, before we get too far into specs and different resolutions and refresh rates and all of the really nerdy stuff, I want to quickly explain why I keep bringing up a racing simulator for this headset. As I said, I've used this for about a month, but up in that box right there on the shelf is the controllers for this headset. I took them out, I used them twice, that is it. They're back in the box, they have no batteries in them because the tracking for the controllers and the overall experience with the controllers for this headset is terrible. I genuinely can't understand how the headset experience is so good, but the controller experience is so bad. Tracking with the controllers is not very good. The controller quality overall is pretty cheap and flimsy, and it's just such a letdown when you look at how good the headset is in comparison to that experience with the controllers, and it just feels like they're from two different headsets. If you're wanting to use this headset outside of a racing sim or a flight sim or something where you need the controllers to work and feel fluid and not draw you too far out of the experience, then I definitely think there are some better headsets on the market that would definitely fit that slot a lot better. But for the sake of a simulator where you need the instrumentation or the information like speedos or your brake bias information or even altitude limits within a flight simulator, then this headset's fantastic. I've seen a lot of different reviews for headsets online, and I've seen where people give you an idea of what it would look like through the lenses by setting up a camera and showing you through the lens of one headset and then through the lens of another headset. But because you're not right in front of it, it completely depends on the camera that you're using, the lens on your camera that you're using, and I feel like it doesn't give a true representation for you guys what it would actually look like. So instead of doing that, what I want to do is break down the specs for the Rift S and the specs for the Reverb. I feel like the Rift S itself is a very popular headset. A lot of people may have had experience with it. A lot of people's friends may have had it and you've tried it out, or any sort of situation like that. I feel like a lot of people know what the Rift S looks like and they know the quality that you get out of a Rift S. So showing you what the HP Reverb specs are may give you a pretty good indication of how much of a jump up it actually is. So I guess the first thing we're going to jump into will be the display. So on the Rift S side, the display of the headset is one LCD panel, and that LCD panel stretches across both screens, so it uses the same display for both screens. Whereas the Reverb uses two 2.9-inch LCD panels. So essentially you have one display stretched across two eyes, and in the G2 you have a display per eye. Now obviously having double the displays, essentially you do need more power to power this headset. So with the G2, it actually does come with an external plug that you plug into a power source that feeds through the headset. Whereas the Rift S, you plug straight into a display port and a USB 3, and that's all that's required to power that headset. So next up, we're going to talk about resolution. Now we are going to use everything in per eye resolution just to make everything super cohesive and make it the same across the board. So the Rift S uses a 1440 by 1600 resolution per eye, and the G2 uses a 2160 by a 2160. So just alone in those specs, you can see that this is really where the G2 shines. It has a much sharper resolution, things are way easier to see within the headset itself, and it just feels overall a lot crisper, and it doesn't have that blurring effect that you guys might have experienced with some of the lower end headsets. So moving on to field of view. Now I think that these are pretty comparable. I think reports on the Rift S say that it's 115 degrees of a field of view, and the G2 is about 114 degrees. I really don't see too much of a difference between the two headsets. The overall experience in the G2 is definitely a lot crisper, so I think that even if the field of view was 5 degrees or 10 degrees more in the Rift S, I still feel like you'd be having a better experience in the G2 over the Rift S just by sheer clarity alone. The next thing that I want to quickly bring up is IPD adjustment. So if you guys are new to VR use and you've never really had that much experience with it, IPD stands for interpupillary distance, which is essentially the distance between each eye's pupil. If you don't know your IPD, you can definitely go down to your local optometrist and they'll actually find out what your IPD is, or you can measure it at home in a vague sort of idea. But generally the best thing to do is put the headset on, fiddle with the IPD distance until you can find something that's a little bit clearer than it was, and that's essentially what you want to be running with. But if you do have the opportunity to go down and get it done professionally, that's always better. Now in the way of adjusting these in the headset, the Oculus Rift does have IPD adjustment, but it's all done digitally. So you need to go into the settings of the headset and toggle through different IPD distances to find out what you like. The G2 is a little bit different, and it actually uses a mechanical switch. So underneath at the bottom here, you've actually got a slider that you can slide left and right, and you can filter it on the fly. So if you're using this headset with somebody else and it's their turn to use the headset, it's really easy just to use that slider on the bottom to work out what your IPD is going to be, and you can quickly adjust it on the fly without having to worry too much about changing settings and working out what it's going to be. Next, I want to talk about audio. So the Rift S actually has a 3.5mm jack on the front of the headset near one of the left tracking cameras, which means if you're using the headset, you can plug in a set of headphones, chuck them on over the top, and then everything is still contained within the headset itself. If you're like me, I like to use in-ear monitors, which means I can run the cable behind my ears, I can plug it in, and if I don't want to have the headset on, I can just unplug the cable, take the headset off with my in-ears still in my ears, and it's just less mess, nothing gets tangled up. It's actually really, really nice and easy to use, which is definitely a benefit. The Reverb G2, however, doesn't actually have a 3.5mm output. What it does come with though are these headphones that are built into the headset. Some people love these, some people hate these. It completely depends on what you're wanting out of your headset, but they do sit on either side, and they actually just flip down, so you can chuck the headset on, flip these little headphones down, which is really, really nice that they do tuck away. I'm so happy that they don't sit out like this all the time. The quality's not the worst. I definitely wouldn't say that it's the best out there in the market, but like I said before, I like to use the VR headset whilst we stream, and having all of my audio and all of my game audio coming out of these headphones is pretty annoying when I've got a microphone in front of me, because it means that there's a lot of feedback, people can hear things from the headset, and it's just overall not a great experience. So I find myself running a separate headphone cable from my Go XLR for the stream, so I can have that audio source without having the microphone pick up that audio source. It's not that big of a deal, but I would have really liked to have seen the 3.5mm audio out on this headset, because it just would have made things a hell of a lot easier. One of the other things that I actually do love with this headset is the face shield itself. So right next to where the lenses are, you have your face shield, and luckily with the HP Reverb, this whole shield actually comes out and it is magnetic. Now you can remove this on the Rift S, but it isn't a magnetic shield, which means you've just got to pull out the pins. It's a little bit clunky sometimes. I really do like this being a magnetic shield. Obviously, this is not a make or break for the headset. I just feel like it's a really nice addition to have because replacing this is a hell of a lot easier than having to try to click things out and click it in. It's just a much nicer experience. Overall, I feel like both headsets are a great addition to any sort of setup that you're looking to make, depending on what you want to use it for. The Rift S is fantastic for an everyday sort of headset. You have access to the Oculus Home. The UI is amazing. I know that it does require a Facebook account to set up your Oculus. I know that really gets on the nerves of some people, whereas the HP doesn't need that because you run it all from Windows Mixed Reality. It's just slight differences. I feel like if you're using a racing sim or a flight sim, the HP Reverb G2 is hands down the one to go for. It's so clear, it doesn't require any base stations, all the tracking is in the headset, very similar to the Rift S, but I feel like in a seated position like a racing sim is really where the Reverb shines. If you're looking to do a little bit more with your VR headset, like FPS games or puzzle games or Beat Saber or anything else along those lines, I think the Rift S is definitely the better option. It may not look as clear, but it definitely functions a hell of a lot better in the way of the controller tracking. The controllers feel like they're a much better quality than the HP controllers, but overall I think both headsets are fantastic and they definitely do each use really, really well. Just because I have the Reverb now doesn't mean that I'm not going to use the Rift S. I feel like if I'm using VR for anything else outside of the racing sim, I'm definitely going to be using the Rift S because it's just a much nicer experience. If you liked this video or found it helpful in any way, don't forget to leave it a like. Also, subscribe. I post videos every week and you don't want to miss them. If you want to come and join us on any of our social media, I will leave links to everything below, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, they're all down there, and we hope to see you soon. If you want to see me use the headset on our Twitch stream, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at twitch.tv/thegamedepartment. Come and let me know you found this video. I'd love to know what you think. Other than that, I'm going to leave you to it. I hope you had a good morning. I hope you have a good night. Bye.